In Genesis 35, the most significant period of Jacob's spiritual journey takes place. At this moment, he finally fulfills the promise he made years ago and returns to Bethel, the place where God appeared to him in the most complicated phase of his life. Jacob calls his family to clarity and commits to God. And God, throughout the text, shows his purpose of defining a separate people, marked by the covenant and by worship. Also in the text, the change of leadership among the descendants. While Rachel and Isaac die, Jacob assumes a more mature conduct, attesting his identity as Israel, the one who was transformed by the encounter with God. The chapter begins with Jacob once again playing a dominant role, leading his family to Bethel, as God had commanded. Jacob's suffering came from what happened to Dinah and the insane act committed by his sons. Due to this, God found him and the word spoken by him was simple and understandable. Jacob should go to Bethel and there make an altar. Jacob then called this place El Bethel, which means God will reveal himself there, and there he would worship God. And it was in that very place and for the first time that God appeared to Jacob. There was a brief mention regarding the images that were stolen by Rachel from her father. And now the possession of these idols was in Jacob's family. Jacob knew about the idols, but did not take any strong action. In the context of the narration of the chapter, purify yourselves, it means to rid oneself of images and all practices associated with them. In the other citation, change your garments. It symbolizes the change of fidelity and religious practice, requiring the removal of superstitions and worship of other gods. But the only worship that should be done was to the true God, who answered Jacob's prayers and made his presence real to him for many years. At that time, the idols made the people distance themselves from God. God is always powerful in his personal relationship with those who truly surrender to him from the heart, where his will prevails. Jacob's family felt the power of this presence of God, as indicated by their prompt obedience to him. Another observation from the text is about the large rings worn in the ears, which were a reference to pagan beliefs, like a type of amulet. Then, Jacob took the idols of Rachel's father to bury them under the oak near the city of Shechem. And due to these conflicting beliefs, Jacob withdrew from the city with his family, and the judgment of God came upon them like a terror that fell upon all the inhabitants of the region and the surrounding areas. Also in the text, a sad news was added, the death of Rebekah's nurse, who was buried under the oak tree, which came to be called the Oak of Tears. In the Bible, it is not mentioned when Rebekah joined Jacob's family nucleus, but as it was narrated, she should have had enough time to win the family's affection. When God appeared to Jacob, there was a blessing that included a new fact in his life, which was the change of his name to Israel, and that was related to other divine visitations, and this gained greater meaning for the patriarch and his descendants. For once again God confirmed his promise made to Abraham, to give him a descendant who would be a nation, a multitude of nations, and the land that would be given to Israel and his children would be like a gift. Israel's gesture was like the first time, when he saw God, raising a stone pillar on which oil was poured to anoint it. This was the testimony that the God of Israel was the true God, who revealed himself to man, and therefore the place was called Bethel, being the place where God spoke. The presence of God did not eliminate the pain of life or Israel's sorrow, but it prepared him for times of afflictions and tribulations, giving him goodness and compassion to overcome the variables of life. Jacob's beloved wife, Rachel, had her second son, but it cost her life. And in her last breath of life, she called the child Benoni, which means, son of my affliction. However, Israel preferred to call him Benjamin, which means, son of prosperity. Rachel passed away and was buried on the way to Ephrath, which is Bethlehem of Israel, and there Israel, Jacob, set up a stone that still exists today. Magdal Eder enters the story to reveal Reuben's incest, as the incident increased Israel's sadness. Reuben was the firstborn son, who violated the standards by committing incest with Bilhah, who was his father's secondary wife. Reuben's act was a sin against marriage and also a challenge to his father's tribal authority. Israel did not punish Reuben immediately, but he did not forget the incident. The sons of Israel, Jacob, were described according to their respective wives Leah, Rachel, Zilpah, and Bilhah. The names of the sons are in the Bible. In total, there were 12 children, and all were born in Paddan Aram. Israel went to his father Isaac's house in Mamre, which is Hebron, and with that, old wounds were healed, and the return home was peaceful. Thus was also the death of Isaac, peacefully at 180 years old, for his sons Esau and Israel, Jacob, had come together for his burial, which took place in the cave of Machpelah. Now the one who would bear the responsibilities of the family was Israel, for the previous generation no longer lived. We see that God walks with Jacob and asks him to erect an altar among his people. But what does an altar mean to the Most High God? God is spirit, and in spirit he must be worshipped by us, in thoughts, words, prayers, and actions, in our home, in our family, and wherever we place the soles of our feet. As it says in Joshua 24 verse 15, "As for me and my household, we will serve the Lord." As we walk the path of God, we must rid ourselves of everything that separates us from integrity and fidelity to God, who is the creator of heaven and earth. For God does not give up on us, even when we are slow to obey or when our family faces critical complications. And when we decide to obey, God guides us, protects us, and renews his promises. We also understand that in difficult situations, such as grief, loss, or family errors, they do not invalidate God's plan, because God continues to write his story through that imperfect family. We even see that we must purify ourselves and renounce idols, idolatry to anything that can pile up in our lives. This includes thoughts, habits, or relationships that distance us from God. We need to rise, go back to the beginning, and renew our commitment to God. Then, the journey of faith involves ups and downs. Thus, there are encounters with God and there are losses. But, in everything, God remains faithful. For when his spirit touches the soul, it topples human pride. God wishes to clothe us with the garments of purity and justice of Jesus Christ, as said in Zechariah 3 verse 4. "Behold, I have removed your iniquity from you, and I will clothe you with rich robes." Wonderful God! Did you like the content? Leave your like, share with your friends, and subscribe to the channel for more inspirational messages. Thank you for watching the video. We'll see you in the next video.